Holocaust survivor Rose Girone lived through 2 global pandemics, escaped Nazi Germany, and raised a daughter inside a ghetto in Shanghai, China. As if all that isn't extraordinary enough, she's also considered a supercentenarian, 110 years old.
I'm 110. I can't believe it.
At the Bel Air Nursing and Rehab Center in North Belmore, Long Island, we met this force of nature who endured so much and barely has a wrinkle on her face. Her secret to longevity?
Don't get upset over nonsense.
Don't sweat the small stuff and also wake up every day with a purpose. In 1938, Rose and her then husband Julius were living in Breslau, Germany. It was less than a year before the war broke out when Julius and his father were rounded up with other German Jews and sent to the Buchenwald concentration camp. While he was imprisoned, Rose gave birth to the couple's daughter named Reha. Here's their little girl, now 83 years old.
My name, Reha, comes from a list that Hitler put out when I was born. Jewish children were only allowed to be those names, girls, and those names, boys. And my mother picked out my name.
A few months after the baby was born, Julius was released from the camp. Soon after, incredible circumstances allowed the family to buy tickets to travel on board a German ship. This was in the summer of 1939, right before the Nazi war machine invaded Poland. That ship was headed to Shanghai, China, where the family sought refuge with about 20,000 other European Jews until the end of the war. At that time, much of China was under Japanese occupation.
We had fun times, believe it or not, in an air raid. And then after the air raid was all over, we'd go out and pick up hot shrapnel on the street.
Playing in the street with shrapnel, a normal activity for kids like Reha and her fellow refugees. That was the only childhood they knew, and much of it was spent living in deplorable conditions. In 1941, Japan seized Shanghai. Japanese troops rounded up all of the city's Jews and confined them to a ghetto. Rose, Julius, and Reha moved into a bathroom, their new living quarters.
Rats, vermin. We had floods twice, way up to here. Food was scarce. My father was a hunter. He used to go out and hunt rabbits, quail, pheasants. We were able to eat all that. Of course, spitting out an awful lot of pellets.
Still, looking back now, Reha and Rose realize how lucky they were. Millions of other European Jews who didn't have the means or the foresight to leave Europe in time were slaughtered in gas chambers and other mass executions. They were sent to extermination camps, forced labor camps, and endured so many other unimaginable horrors. In total, 6 million European Jews were slaughtered, in addition to millions of other innocent victims: gay men, political prisoners, people with disabilities, people of color, gypsies, Jehovah's Witnesses, and more.
You have seen enough documentaries and credence of what went on in camps, concentration camp. How could you not consider us lucky?
It's been difficult at times, but I managed.
In Shanghai, Rose, who was a skilled knitter, started a knitting business. Years later, after the family emigrated to the U.S. and eventually moved to New York, she and a business partner saved up enough money to open up 2 knitting stores in Queens.
People would bring her things from a magazine, things they would dream up. She would come home with graph paper and start figuring it out. She would sit all night. I think she really enjoyed it, and she was good with the math.
At 110, Rose can no longer communicate too clearly with her words, but her presence is strong. She was knitting up until just a few years ago and even knit the sweater that she's wearing for this interview. As passionate as she was about knitting, there's one thing in her life that she's most proud of, and that's her only child.
You are the best thing
That ever happened to you, I know.
ever accomplished in my life.
It's really my mother's Holocaust story. She's a strong lady. She rolled with the punches. I was her top priority for everything. And that is how she made it through. I was blessed with the best mother in the world.
Rose has one granddaughter named Gina who lives nearby on Long Island. Rose also remarried a man named Jack here in New York who passed away many years ago. The family speaks of their Holocaust experience often and even returned to Shanghai in the 1980s. Reha hopes that when people hear their story, they will remember this message.
There should be no prejudices. There's no reason why Jewish blood is any different than Hindu blood, than Catholic blood, than any other blood. There shouldn't be any difference. You shouldn't have to hate because of a person's race, creed, color, whatever it is.
These days, Rose loves chocolate and soaking up the warm sun. This resilient woman turns 111 in January and is proud of the legacy she will leave behind. In North Belmore, Long Island, Dana Arschin, HMTC.